Well, welcome everyone. My name is John Gilmore. Have you guys been having a good time so far?
Yes.
Yeah. Did they tell you that this place is actually haunted?
No.
No? Yeah. Well, I mean, if you look around with all the memorabilia we have here from past magicians, I mean, it's a given that some of these objects do indeed come attached with some spirits. To begin, we're going to just invite them to join us, if that's okay with everyone. Okay. So this is an audience participation type thing. I need you all to put a hand out. And we're going to use this crystal glass suspended on a thread. And we're going to, everyone just hold it out here, and we're going to wait. If the spirits come, the glass will let us know. Did you guys hear that? Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I think we've invited the spirits to join us, so I think it's safe for us to begin. Don't worry, they won't follow you home. They like it here. Unless you offer them pizza. They'll go for some pizza. Okay. Well, like I said, my name is John Gilmore. I'm going to tell you about a few magicians of yesteryear. First one I'm going to talk about actually has to do with, it's a little hard to see, but this trick cannon that we have here, small trick cannon. That trick cannon used to belong to Adelaide Herman. And she gifted that to Harry Blackstone Sr. upon her retirement because of Blackstone's kindness. When she lost all of her equipment during a fire, he loaned her his equipment so she could continue on with the tour. Because of his act of kindness, she was able to complete everything, and as such, she gave him that cannon. Which brings us to fires. Fires at that time were very common. I mean, if you think about it, most buildings were built primarily of wood and had a lot of combustible material in there. Plus, zoning and building codes were virtually non-existent along with fire prevention. That was in its infancy. So they were very dangerous and deadly at that time. Which brings us to this program. This is the Great Lafayette. The program is dated May 15th, 1911. And I know it's a little hard to see here in this light, but there's Lafayette. Now, Lafayette's real name was Sigmund Neuberger. You can probably see why he changed to the Great Lafayette. Goes off the tongue a little bit easier. He was born in 1871 in Munich, Germany, and immigrated to the U.S. when he was 19 years old. Now, one year, he was doing a tour through Tennessee, and at an opera house in Nashville, he met up with another young upcoming magician. You guys might have heard of him. That magician's name was Harry Houdini. Okay. Now, neither one of them were famous yet, but they both would be. They became friends, and Houdini gifted Lafayette a dog. That dog became Lafayette's best friend in the whole world, and he named the dog Beauty. Now, Beauty had a life. Had its own bedroom, own bathroom, ate 5-course meals. An image of Beauty even appeared on Lafayette's checks, and Beauty became a valued member of his cast of the show. In 1911, the Great Lafayette was at the height of his game. He was the highest paid performer in vaudeville, and things seemed to be going pretty well. That is until May of 1911. For on May 5th, his best friend in the whole world, Beauty, passed away. Now, Lafayette was devastated, but he had just started a 2-week tour in Scotland, and he needed to complete that to fulfill his obligations. So he went to a local cemetery to try to make arrangements to bury Beauty and erect a big tombstone, but the cemetery officials there told him no, they would not allow a burial of a dog. Well, after much pleading and begging, they finally relented when Lafayette agreed that he himself would be interred there upon his death. So the show must go on. Lafayette continued his tour at the Empire Theater, and on May 11th, he was doing the show. He performed an effect called The Lion's Bride. That was one of his famous illusions. He was thrown into this big cage that had a lion in it, and just as when the big cat was about ready to pounce on him and devour him, the lion suddenly shed its skin And there where the lion used to be was now the illusionist himself. Lafayette then took his bows to great fanfare and applause, and during this time, a lamp on stage somehow fell over, caught the stage on fire. Now, Lafayette was like a lot of other magicians of this time. He was very secretive. He was also fearful that other magicians would try to come in and steal his secrets. And as such, he had most of the backstage exits blocked and locked, so nobody could do that. Now the audience, they were all able to escape and make it to safety. His cast, not as lucky. 10 people lost their lives that day, including Lafayette himself. His body was found not far from where he was last seen, and it was so badly burned that they can only identify him because of the costume that he wore. They had him cremated and were planning on services the following week. Well, a few days later, they were going through the rubble of the building, and they happened to find another body. This time not on the stage, but actually underneath the stage. Now this body, again badly burned, had these jewel-encrusted rings on his fingers that Lafayette always wore. It was then discovered that he accomplished his great illusion through the use of a body double. Now luckily they were able to find his real body before the burial. They did get him cremated, and he got to join his best friend in the world for all his services. Now his friend, Harry Houdini, said of his death, he fooled them in life and he fooled them in death. I envied them. So, out of the remnants of that ill-fated fire, they were able to salvage some timber. And out of that timber, they made this box. Again, a fairly simple looking box. There's 2 holes on each side. The front opens up to reveal the inside. And I know it's a little difficult to see here, but there is absolutely nothing inside. And on the top, there's a little circular cutout that opens up. So we're going to imagine this box being a stage. And we're going to illustrate some of the mysterious things that could happen using 2 pieces of rope, a red rope and a white rope. Now the ends of the rope will remain in plain view at all times, but the middle of the rope will go inside the box and come up through the top. Like Lafayette performing some of his illusions, people were fooled. They questioned whether it was a mirage or an optical illusion, for somehow the ropes actually appear to be linked. And if you look closely, they really are linked together. Now we're going to... I had the same reaction. We're going to take this a step further. And as such, Lafayette would often call people up on the stage to help. And Pam, would you be willing to come and help me? Okay, if you can stand right here. And would you help me too? All right. Okay, if you can stand on this side. We're going to do this one more time. One thing we're going to need, a wand. We'll put that right there. Like before, the ends of the ropes will remain in plain view at all times, while the middle of the rope goes inside the box and up through the top. Again, the ends of the rope remains in plain view at all times. The middle of the rope goes inside the box and up through the top. Now, I think we can all agree that there's no way these ropes can be linked, right? No. But just in case you guys don't believe me, because who would not trust a magician? There's nothing better I can do than actually open it up and show you. Are they linked?
No.
Are they linked?
No.
And I don't know if your audience can see that, but are they linked?
No.
No. Okay. Many magicians use a magic wand. Now, I like to do things a little different than most. Instead of using the wand to make the magic happen, I like to use the wand to keep the magic from happening. And I'm going to let you play the role of the great Lafayette. And what I want you to do is I want you to stick the wand. No, you don't. You don't have to. That's good. I want you to stick the wand through the 2 loops here. And we're going to pull it down tight. Okay? And if you could hold these 2 right here, and you can let go of that, and you hold these 2 right here. Now again, we've shown that these ropes are not linked. We just locked the loops in place, so there's no way they can be linked. Like I said, the magic wand is keeping the magic from happening. Once we remove the wand and tuck these back down inside, the box, weird and wonderful things happen. Like I said, this was made from the timber of that ill-fated fire. And sometimes unexplained things happen. On the count of 3, I want you to slowly pull the ropes apart, okay, until you feel some tension. 1. Can you feel the excitement? Yeah, that could just be the spirit watching over your shoulder. 2. Now I've done this 3 times. Ready? 3. Slowly pull. Do you feel that?
Oh my gosh, it's got
okay.
my rope.
Now that's impossible unless.
Whoa! What?
Folks, it happened again.
The haunted box.
This simple wooden box made from the timbers of that
No way, we're
ill-fated fire, you can let go now, has shown that sometimes things are unexplainable. Perhaps Lafayette is still here with us. Thank you both very much for helping. Now I have one more magician I would like to talk about. The next magician, he was at a time when people were both fascinated and fearful of death. At the turn of the century, Victorians were absolutely horrified and terrified of being accidentally buried alive. The thought of suffocation in the coffin to them was more terrifying than being burned at the stake or being tortured on a rack. Now, many items and devices were invented and patented at this time to help prevent the premature burial, such as bells that could be rung inside the coffin, or even speaking tubes so the supposedly dead could shout out for help should they be accidentally interred. Many magicians at this time capitalized upon this fear. Harry Houdini even did so. He had an illusion on stage where he was buried alive. Now, one somewhat interesting and forgotten magician of yesteryear was that of Benjamin Rucker. He was known professionally as Black Herman. He was an African-American magician, illusionist, and medicine man. And he made his fame in Harlem, where he developed the act he was best known for. It was a combination of stagecraft, illusions, comedy, vaudeville theater, religious oratory, and mind-reading tricks. So he did a little bit of everything. But he became pretty well known then. He also sold on the side mail order courses, lucky numbers, and health tonics. And in 1925, he was arrested and sent to Sing Sing on charges of fraud because of some of these things. But that did not deter him, because by the end of the decade, he was back up on stage performing. Now, he was also a practitioner of African-American spiritualistic practices, such as divination, conjure healing, and also hoodoo. But his claim to fame, though, was that of being buried alive. He would travel to a town and they would dig a grave next to the theater or other public spot, and he would erect a sign that would say, Black Herman's private graveyard. And they'd gather everyone around, and he'd stand up in front of them and slow his pulse down by putting a ball or something under his arm and pinching off the nerve so it slows his pulse down. And then he would have a local doctor, who was often in on the ruse, proclaim him dead. Then he would be put in the coffin, and as he was lowered down into the ground, he would somehow slip out unnoticed. They would bury the coffin, put the dirt back on top, and then for the next week, people would pay to come look at his grave. Now, during this time, he would often sneak off, go to another town, and set up the same ruse. Because why waste any time? And then he would return when it was time to exhume the body. As they would bring the coffin back up, he would sneak back inside just like how he left. And then they'd open the coffin, and he would rise up triumphantly to great fanfare and applause, and then lead everyone back down to the theater and finish the show. Now, April 15th, 1934, the great Lafayette was 44 years old, and he passed away, presumably from a heart attack. Now, due to his buried alive fame, a lot of people didn't believe that he actually died. His assistant, Washington Reeves, he capitalized upon this too. And he claimed that using some of the hoodoo that his boss taught him, he was actually able to contact and raise the spirit of Black Herman through the use of a simple wicker doll. he would gather people together, such as a group like this, and under the canopy of darkness and amid flickering candlelight, he would charge them 10 cents a person. And I'm not going to pass a hat, because I think you've already paid a little bit more than 10 cents. But he would charge them 10 cents a person, and then take that wicker dowel, and he would put it in his hand and hold it out in front. And then slowly, ever so slowly, the dowel would start raising up in his hand. It would raise up until it was standing up and look around as if peering into everyone's soul. Not to creep you out. Then we would go back down. And Black Herman would whisper a few secret words to it. Necessary, he said, so as to keep the wicker man and the spirit of Black Herman from rising again. Like I said, during this time, during this time, death held a certain fear and fascination to most people. It still does today, to this day, and I surmise it probably will until the end of time. So, my name, again, is John Gilmore, and I appreciate the time you spent with me, and they will lead you on to the next station. Thank you.
Thank you.